Welcome to the Sex, God, and Chaos podcast, a conversation built to help you address the mess, connect the dots, and defeat addiction. Doing your work matters because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. Life is tough and we're here to help. I'm your host, Ben Derrick, and as always, I'll be joined by Roane Hunter. Let's jump right in. Well, let's return to my standard intro, back again for another episode.
Here we are again, and I'm back.
You're back, baby.
I'm back.
And he's got his sidekick.
And
That's right.
Eva is still with us.
Yeah. It was a fantastic 40-minute episode without you, but I don't want to rub that in your face.
I wake up a lot of mornings and look over, and I'm like, Eva is still with us. It's amazing. I'm so excited.
That's so
Miracles
funny.
do still happen,
That's so
right?
funny.
Yes, she loves me. I know she does.
It has been
She's
quite a
stuck
while
around.
since we were the three of us on a microphone.
It really has.
Yeah. Too long, I would say.
Yes.
I forget how much fun this is.
Yeah. Well, you should be back more often.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like your name is on the podcast.
There you go.
It's like, we like it when you're a guest on your podcast.
I know. I'm definitely a special guest.
You
Yeah.
are that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I think everyone who listens to this podcast knows Eva is the most boundaried woman in the United States of America. Yeah, I know my name's on that podcast. I'll be there when I'm ready, right? And we're like, cool, sounds good.
Yes.
When I can fit it in.
There you go.
Yes.
Lots of therapists refer their clients to Eva to do work on boundaries. Yes.
I could see that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's be honest. Part of the reason why it's difficult is because you guys have so much going on. And one of those things we're going to talk about today, a part of your practice or an arm of what you do is intensives, which sounds intense, right? So we wanted to get an episode in where we described what is an intensive, why are they necessary? Because we get this question a lot. I know that I do. If I'm sitting down with someone, and I'm air quoting here, regularly, and sometimes regularly means 6 times a year. That's not regularly. But
No.
if I'm sitting down with someone regularly, then why do I need to go to an intensive? And what happens at those intensives anyway? You know, some people see them as a bait and switch, or is this going to be an ambush? What is this like? And I bring these descriptions up because I've been around them. They're nothing like that. And we're going to take some time to describe what an intensive is and why you guys have chosen to incorporate that as part of your model of helping people, right?
Well, you're so right, Ben. You know, people hear the word intensive, and we get the questions, why is it an intensive? It sounds like it's just going to be very strenuous. And in many ways it is, because it really, it's an emotional marathon. And those emotional marathons do become physical. But yeah, I think we call them intensives. I don't know where the name
I
actually
don't
came.
either.
I mean, it's like a lot of times workshop, seminar. But I think I do like the word.
I think
fits.
it's because a lot of work happens in therapy. A lot of therapy work happens.
Yeah, it's actually, you're actually doing, like clinical therapy work for roughly about 7 hours during the days that you are participating in the intensive.
That's right.
And if you've been a part of therapy and you sat on a couch for an hour, it's like a lot of people, that's hard to do.
Man, yeah.
Yeah. And so certainly them, coming and doing this is powerful because of the fact that you can get so much work done in that setting, and the dynamics are so great. I mean, we do one-to-one intensives where we'll work with a couple, Eve and I as a couple, working with them as a couple. We just call those our one-to-one intensives. But the group intensives, and we tell the couples that do that the group intensives are actually, we believe, more effective, more powerful, because you're actually watching and hearing these other couples do their work, and you're learning from them as they are talking, and they are actually doing the experiential therapy exercises that are part of the intensives. And it's just really powerful because there's so much awareness that comes as a result of of just being in that group setting.
Exactly. And even in a partner intensive where it's just women, and we talk about their losses, many of them don't really have a language for, I've lost like the part where he promised to forsake all others, right? I've lost that. But what else have I lost? I'm not even aware of what else I've lost. But to hear another woman share, well, this is what I've lost. And they're like, it's so many Me Too moments where they haven't even thought about. So it just increases their awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true in any, because Ro, my son, and I do the men's intensives. Eva does the partner intensives for women, and then she and I do the couples intensives. Obviously, we do those together. And in each of those settings, it is amazing what happens in that group dynamic.
Yes.
It's powerful.
It is.
Because it's such a connecting time moment when you're in those situations with people that are in like circumstances. And one of the big things is just, this is like, cherry pick. This is easy pickings, is like you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? The things that you are feeling and experiencing and thinking, everybody, we all think when we're going through this stuff, somehow, I'm crazy. I've got some diagnosable mental illness, which that's all ludicrous. But we all have those thoughts that somehow, man, I need to be locked up in the state mental hospital. But you get in those environments and what you realize is like, man, I'm kind of regular,
Yeah. Exactly.
We're all in the same boat,
right.
And it's just common to the human experience. And certainly, this when we're dealing with, whether sexual brokenness on whatever level that comes, whether it's pornography or affairs or prostitutes, full blown sexual addiction. This is crisis level stuff when it gets discovered. And boy, it just does a number on everybody involved. And so if you can get into doing a group intensive like that, is so much more effective than just sitting on the couch hour to hour, week to week. That takes a long time.
Right.
I do think you guys can appreciate, though, what you're saying sounds very opposite of what would be true, right? Because I show up to a place and I'm only here because I or we are broken in some way, and now we have to be broken in front of other people. There are not a lot of social constructs where that's actually a good idea.
Wait, Ben, I thought that happened at church.
Roan's back, everyone.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Can't help it. Eva's here. I got to be good.
There you
sorry,
go.
I apologize.
Well, these are the two places where we would think the help would reside, either in a faith community or our family of origin. And most people go to those two places and realize, this isn't it, right? So when they get to an intensive, I guess it would be helpful just for our listeners to hear, how does that go? Do we all file in, one by one in shame, or what happens here at these intensives? We show up typically it's on a weekend. We show up on a Friday, then what, right?
Yeah, you want to jump in? Or?
So typically what happens is that everyone is feeling anxious. That's normal.
Okay.
Right? Because they're showing up to a place that they've never been before. For me personally, I do my intensives for women at a cabin. The cabin's on 5 acres. It's really a beautiful setting. It has a little lake in the back of the property, and it's very peaceful, very calming. However, when they walk in the door, they feel very anxious. And like I said, that's normal. So we're very intentional about trying to help them settle in and feel some level of connection very soon with one another. And once they feel some connection, they begin to feel safe, right? Many times that happens with me personally sharing my own story, or one of my other therapists or coaches that help help me. They may share their story too. Now the playing field is level, right?
Yeah.
That's typically the first start in those group settings. Now in our couples intensive, Roane and I will share our story together, or we actually have a video that we will show. Like, this is where we came from. This is us.
That makes a lot of sense. So you don't have to share that story over and over.
Yes, because we'll go down all kinds of rabbit trails. It could last 4 hours if we did that.
That's just if I start talking. Yeah, right. No doubt.
We have a video to contain Roane. I love that. Yeah.
Well, it's so important for us as the facilitators. And again, this goes against, what they try to beat into you in counseling training of do not share your personal experiences, all that stuff, which is crazy.
Well, it is, and I think it's changing too, though.
Yeah.
I think it is changing. They're beginning, counseling world is beginning to see the value in it.
It's very slow, no doubt.
It is slow.
But basically, the people that are there begin they're like, oh, wow, if they're going to just be very open, then maybe we can too.
That's right.
And we tell couples up front that there's no, nobody's going to be forced to air their dirty laundry or tell anything that you don't want to tell. It's not, a lot of people think that our intensives we're just going to get in there and you're going to have to tell everything, every deep, dark secret you've ever done and share that in a group. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. They don't have to share any of that, and they are going to benefit greatly. It's pretty amazing. I think the way that I try to describe it to somebody is you're going to be in an environment where you're doing really kind of group therapy in an environment with others, obviously, and your spouse is going to be in the room with you, and each of you are going to be doing your individual work. And they're because most people, if you're in Christendom, maybe you've been to some marriage seminar or something, and it was pretty lame. And you got some good tips and you wrote some stuff down and you sat there cognitively listening. And that's what they think it's going to be. Well, it is not that, because you're going to engage experientially. And that just simply means that not only are you going to engage cognitively, it's like your mind and your body are going to be engaged in the process. And even research shows, it's the most effective form of change. And rather than just sitting on a couch cognitively talking. And I'm not saying don't go to counseling. Obviously, everybody needs to go to counseling and go a lot.
Yes.
But it is so much more effective in those environments, for sure.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Also, I think in our couples intensives, like we've already had one this year, and we have 2 more, one in the summer and one in the fall. In those intensives, the couples, that yes, they're doing their individual work, and yet it's where they become so empathetic with one another. Right? Because now they can see, they may have known the backstory, but now they can see the backstory of what set them up, what set each other up in order to marry one another, what they brought into the marriage. And I mean, it just is where empathy begins to happen.
Yeah, we often say, the couples intensives are just simply, our whole process that we take a couple through is a movement from false intimacy to true intimacy. The marriage that God desired, intended for all of us before all hell broke loose.
And yes, you're saying intimacy, and I love that word, intimacy. I'm saying empathy.
Empathy, yeah.
Empathy, too. They really begin
totally
to connect on an empathetic level as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the most powerful pieces, because we're obviously working with each individual's family system, what they grew up in. And this was way before they ever met each other.
Yeah.
So, the tendency is for spouses, to blame everything bad in my life on her, right? And that's, so far from the truth, because, what happens in marriage, the stuff that I brought into marriage, the baggage, the luggage that I brought onto the marriage train, all that stuff was packed in that luggage way before I ever met Eva. And then, it's in that compartment that's zipped up tight up underneath the main part of the suitcase, but it's there. And then it starts to come out in the marriage. And then, rather than looking inward, I just want to blame her because that's much easier. And we never do the inward journey, the work. And really, it's kind of the Christian journey. It's what we're all called to be doing, but we don't do in Western Christianity much. But if we're doing the work, we're going to be in this process, what we're figuring out are the messages, the deep-seated false belief system that we all have that gets tapped into. And we get into these arguments over nothing. And at 2 a.m., we look at each other and go, what are we even fighting about? Right? But what's happening is like, man, those old wounds, old messages that you brought into the marriage before you ever, met your spouse, those things are getting tapped into.
So the backstory that you're talking about, you really piqued my interest there, Eva. So there's an opportunity for the members of the couple, if they desire, to open up more about their own history. And I'm assuming at the intensive, they're given some framework to do that in.
Absolutely. And what other couples share, it can help another couple go, oh, me too. I did not know that. I connect with this part of your story. I'd forgotten that part of mine, right? Or I hadn't really, now that I can see it in you, I see it in myself as well. So that's really, more about the couples intensive. And then our individual intensives where we have, several men or women intensives come, and we do 3 of those a year. We have one coming up. We each do in the end of April, and then we have one in the summer and one in the fall. That too, they're doing their own individual work, which is unbelievable what happens in those.
Yeah, it's the group dynamic. Because, one of the things we say, 25 times a day at least, the cure for what ails all of us, it is connection. And if I can get in a setting like that and be connected with other human beings with like stories that are all moving in the same direction and, dealing with some of the same issues, it's amazing the healing that can occur in a 2-day or 3-day intensive setting. It's just powerful.
It is.
And, we see that at deer camp.
Yeah.
Those deer camp, a lot of guys, deer camp is not a clinical intensive. It's our formal name for that is our men's coaching weekend. And we're in Mississippi. We certainly, we have to call it deer camp because it looks like somebody's deer camp.
Yeah.
But it's the same type thing that happens where, man, these guys are coming and they just we just work with somebody's story. And it's not clinical, it's not counseling, it's not therapy, whereas the intensives are very specifically that. But deer camp is probably a great way for a guy to really begin to work with this stuff in a lot less cheaper way, I guess.
Well, deer camp too, I think I kind of see deer camp as more of a flyover. Right? It's just kind of a flyover. And then the intensives are more like, okay, I'm going to land the plane.
Oh yeah, we're going to dive. We're going to
dive deeper.
Actually, we're getting on a submarine because we're going to dive. We're going to dive deep.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very helpful to do those things, actually, I would say, in that order. For you to be able to go and like, okay, let me just figure out what it means to sit in this group. Yeah. And there are often a lot of agreements, either stated or non-stated, with the couple.
Right.
So I find a lot of the power is in being able to separate from my responsibilities and rules of engagement with relationships and actually to be on my heels a little bit, right?
Right.
You talk about anxiety walking into an environment. I'm paying attention a little bit more
Right.
than a place where I'm comfortable.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit anxious, but I don't have to worry about kids. I don't have to worry about wife. I don't have to worry about coworkers. I'm just Ben on this deck, and there are very few places where that can occur. So I think there's a lot of power in being able to show up in that environment first, learn a little bit of the language and what actually goes on, and especially if the other part of the couple can do that as well. Now we're showing up with a little bit of information and some reps independent before we try to do this together.
Right.
Especially because the intensive is a little more intense, right?
Yes,
So now you could participate in an intensive as a flyover. I'm sure there are a lot of men that actually do that. I'm here, but I'm not going to be here, right? But if you're able to show up at a gender-specific intensive, and I think people are always asking me the question, well, why would I do that? I'm sitting with you on a regular basis, but things are going okay. Why would I do that? It's a whole weekend. It's more money, blah, blah, blah. But we're able to say behind these microphones, you're going to accelerate your growth.
That's right.
By sitting at one of these things. A lot of the power is with being with like-minded people, learning how to do these things. It is absolutely worth it.
It is.
And there are couples from all over the country, right, that are coming to your intensives. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And men, because of our...
and women.
And women.
Partners.
And certainly because of our connection as clinical partners with the Samson Society and the Sarah Society. And man, they have been tremendous supporters, and they're loading the bus, and it's just so neat. And now, for our men's intensives, and you've had this for your partners' intensives as well. We've got guys coming back as alumni. Yeah, and there's nothing better, because now what you're really seeing is the real community forming. In those settings, because many of those Samson guys, they're in online groups, and they love coming to these intensives because they actually, they know each other and know each other very well, even in the online setting. But they get to come hang out together for a weekend, and that's just another powerful way that that things kind of fall together.
For the partner intensive this year, we'll be offering an advanced. It will be in the summer or either the fall. I'm not sure which one yet, but it will be an advanced. So you will have had to have come to the first level. This is level 2.
You're talking you said partners. You meant the couples.
No. I meant partners.
Oh, okay.
We're doing an advanced intensive.
This
Learn
just
something new every day.
You did not know this.
Maybe you haven't been invited to this level.
He's not in level 2.
I'm not invited to the partners intensives.
He's not in level 2. We're doing
Please don't edit this part.
There's always that moment,
typical.
where we find the name of the episode, and this one's Roan's not in level 2.
Yeah,
but you know what I love about this?
This
is what I love about this conversation, that it's typically me going, oh, I didn't know that. And now you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's great.
Yes.
So even with our intensity, there are different levels, and important to go, not critical, but important to go in order. You're saying when it comes to level 2, you need to be familiar enough with the work at level 1.
Oh, yes.
Before you can move to level 2.
Level 2, that's right. Ideally, though, if we're working with a couple in crisis, ideally what we'd like to see happen is that they would each do an individual intensive, and then they would come and do a couples intensive, like over a year to a year and a half time, somewhere in there. And they don't have to have had disclosure. It would be good if they've had disclosure, but they don't have to have had disclosure yet to gain what they need. It almost helps them prepare for disclosure as well. So I would say that we also are now offering, it's known as care credit, because, getting healthy costs money. We always say.
Mucus and money.
Yep.
So we have partnered with care credit, and they are just a way to be able to finance some of your therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what those guys are doing.
Yeah.
You know, understanding that sometimes the need is so acute that the money hasn't had time to get there yet.
Right.
But we want to do the work in the time that it needs to be done. You know?
And I mean, I can't remember, and I'm old. That's not unusual, but I don't think we've ever had any. Most people, once they do an intensive, the thing that we hear is, "Boy, that was one of the best things I've ever done," and that's true if somebody goes off to treatment even. But everybody's hesitant, you know, if you haven't done something like that, because it's different. It's a different environment, but boy, it is. I mean, again, I think, you know, we hear it all the time. Best thing I've ever done, best money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's break it down this way. What is, if we could identify the goal or a set of goals, what are we out for with this intensive experience with a couple or individuals? What's the end game?
Is that they know themselves.
Yeah, I mean, certainly awareness.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always say it's like about every time Jesus opened his mouth, the thing that he is talking about is awareness. Because the more aware we are of what's going on inside of us, the more ability we're going to have to relate functionally and to regulate emotionally.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
You must do this for a living.
Those are great words.
There you go.
Write that down. I'll forget it.
You had a moment of genius and it was on a microphone.
Yes.
Oh, good. We've recorded it.
We've recorded it.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. Well, you really took 200 words to say what your wife said in you know,
About 10.
a phrase.
That's
Yeah.
pretty normal.
But thanks for chiming in. So to get to know yourself, I think the pushback maybe from our listeners would be, well, I already know myself. You know, I'm a Saints fan. I went to Mississippi State, former Sigma Chi, and I sell insurance. What else is there to know?
Oh, that's hilarious. You know, we're always in growth mode. And on this side of heaven, we are always in growth mode, and we always have new awarenesses. Been at this for a long time, 32 years.
3. You
30,
said, 32 before. It's 33.
33 years. And every season of my life, 4 seasons in a year, there's a new awareness for me. And so I always want to be in a position in those settings to really become a better me.
Yeah. And it's very difficult. I think we should put this out in the space. It's very difficult to do this kind of work DIY, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
You know, we are used to in our lives, I've got a question, I'm going to YouTube, I'm going to watch somebody talk about this, and then I'm going to get after it, right?
Yeah.
This sort of work just doesn't happen that way.
No. It needs to be in a group setting.
Yeah.
I always love it when I hear a guy say, you know, I'm going to take some time, I'm going to go work on myself. And I'll just look at him and go like, well, dude, you've been doing that's your problem. You've been working on yourself by yourself, and here you are. So maybe you ought to try it, do something different.
I love how gentle you are, man. It's just, gosh, just like Santa Claus and Grandpa all wrapped up in one. Dude, that's what got you here.
That's like, yeah.
I don't know. He shaved his goatee. Did you notice?
I did
notice.
notice.
He shaved his off. I think he looks younger.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. We definitely needed
But he
that.
is a grandpa. He is a grandfather.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To two precious
So to be able to
children.
say to people, hey, your best efforts are what got you here. Maybe it's time to sit back, receive, and follow a little bit of protocol that you didn't think up. Right. And these intensives allow you to do that. You're able to submit to a process more than just a day. And I find as well, especially at Deer Camp, day one is kind of the wind up, wind down sort of day. Right. So if you're going to, if we could put this in very standard terms, if you're winding up and winding down inside of an hour once a week for 12 weeks, you're doing the hardest part of the lift without any of the benefits of group and getting to that second layer of, okay, now I'm acclimated, right? I can actually talk some stuff out and give other people space to talk those things out. The weekly sessions are so great for like checkups and things that are acute, right? But when we get to these intensives, it gives us enough time when we talk about story to get into more of the story, right? To read chapters 3 and 4 and 6. And that's so helpful for people.
Well, one of the things that happens in the hourly counseling session, I mean, it's so common, especially with couples, even with individuals too, is like, man, we're kind of putting out the fire of the week, or the issue of the day. And then you kind of deal with that. And then, like, to really get into the actual therapy work, which is not putting out the fires, where you're actually beginning to gain insight and gain awareness, looking at, how you got here, how you're wired, your trauma, all the stuff. Well, usually you have about 7 minutes to do that. And maybe somebody drops into that. But then it's like, okay, time's up.
I know.
Yeah, we just got to the good stuff walking down the hall on the way out, right? Yeah. So, unfortunately, we're running a little short on time. For those that are listening, how do we find these intensives? Which website? How do we sign up? What's the best way to do this?
Yeah, just our website is it's lifeworks.ms, and there's.
Under the programs,
there's more information about the intensives and dates under the programs tab. But you can just send an email to info@lifeworks.ms, and one of our admin will get back with you and hopefully get you here and into one of our intensives.
Easily done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're hopeful, Roane, that you'll eventually reach level 2.
I just think it's going to be a minute.
Walk at your own pace. We are with you.
I'm still trying to get to level 1.
I just love that I had new information.
To learn more about what you've heard today and to engage with the Sex, God, and Chaos team, visit sexgodchaos.com.